So there's a lot of theories out there, a lot of people, a lot of academia, or people speaking academically about persuasion and influence, but I couldn't find a model that was user-friendly and easy and simple to use. So I created Frame Persuasion Dynamics over a number of years so that I could teach people how to sell, how to persuade and influence in a simple way to understand, that's easy to understand.
That's brilliant. Over the last 10 years, you've built this company to be able to teach people that sales is something that everybody needs, especially if you're running your own business. And you found that there's no simple way to try and teach someone how to be better at sales, because we're all in sales, actually.
Everybody's selling something.
Everybody's selling something. Yeah. But, you know, we grow up and think that selling is bad, or we get conditioned to think that trying to sell something, a product or a service or something that, you know, it seems frowned upon. And yet it's such a phenomenal skill to actually have.
Absolutely. It's a problem that a lot of people have, and they have a psychological blockage. They'll tell me, they'll come on my course and they'll tell me I'm not in sales. But the truth is that everybody's selling something every day. It doesn't matter if you're trying to get a raise, you're trying to get a date, you're trying to get your kids to say no to drugs or take a bath, or whatever you're doing every single day. The skill that we're utilizing or leveraging the most is sales and persuasion and influence.
That's exactly, because I also felt that, you know, I'm not a salesman. I don't do sales. But after you explain it in the club officer training, it's like, damn, I am in sales. Everybody's selling something. Everybody's selling something.
So absolutely.
You know, but you use this this understanding thing. It's like, I understand where you're coming from. I recognize how you're feeling. You gave us a type of formula, a very simplistic formula that I've been utilizing ever since. Can you go through that again, please, if you can?
Yeah, it's difficult to put in a nutshell, but the basic idea behind frame persuasion dynamics is that who names a frame controls the game. So in a frame of mind, we can only process a certain amount of information at a time. So how do we influence people in a way that we influence their frame so that they can take action? So the idea of selling in the way that I've designed it, it's almost like playing frame games, and it's a bit of a game. So I've got different tools that you can use to challenge people's frames of mind, and each tool that you leverage through the step-by-step system, from opening the sale to closing the sale. And the closing the sale is not necessarily closing, it's getting the person to take action. So that could be in an idea, product, or service. And then each technique weakens the other person's frame and makes your frame stronger, ultimately. And that includes asking the right questions. It includes opening properly, because if you don't open your conversation correctly, you're not going to get compliance. You're not going to get involvement. In that way, you're going to get resistance. You're going to get fight or flight response. So telling stories, telling the right type of stories, and the power of stories. Telling stories is an incredibly powerful and influential tool in persuasion. The greatest, most influential people in the world are the greatest storytellers in the world. And more than that, also how to reframe. So people are going to object to your ideas. What are you going to do when somebody says no, or it's too expensive, or it's I don't have time, or it's not for me? How are you going to respond to that? So I have different techniques that I teach, reframing technique to handle objections within whatever context you're using. And then obviously closing is very important, because if you don't close, you don't get the deal. So you don't get people to take action. So that's very important that people take action. So it's a step-by-step system. I prefer to call it a system because systems are variable. The conversations never go exactly to plan. So you have to have flexibility as well. I always quote Mark Tyson when he said, we all have a plan until we get punched in the face. It kind of works the same in sales, you know. You go in with this big plan, and then or in any situation, and then it doesn't quite go that way. So you need that flexibility, and that's why each step-by-step tool or technique that I teach can be leveraged at any time in the conversation. You never quite know when it's going to come up, but it's almost like a game where you have these tools or weapons in your back pocket that you can pull out depending on how
your battle is going.
Yeah. That's a creative process.
It's a creative process. It must be, because you have to be changeable, adaptable, flexible. You have to come up with new ways and new ways of thinking about things. You have to deal with complex problems, small problems. Sometimes you just get in your own way. It's actually phenomenal how much there is to know about selling.
Oh, I got you back.
Okay. So it's wonderful to know how much there is to know about selling. Just the art and persuasion of selling a product.
No, it's a completely creative process, because each individual that you engage with is exactly that. He's an individual or an individual person, and you need to be creative in the way that you approach each individual or each audience. And you never know what's going to happen along the way. So it's very important that you have a creative and flexible approach to every conversation, every situation, and in life as well, because seldom things go in a straight line. Very unlikely. So we need to be flexible. We need to be creative. And I think one of the big problems with other sales strategies or methodologies is they lack flexibility. So they look great on paper. You know, you can go on paper and say, if he says this, you say that, and you say this, and they say that. But then you go and have a real life conversation, and it never goes like that. Or very rarely that it goes like that. So you have to, it's more about learning different skills so that you can have that flexibility and that room to be creative. And the more flexibility you have in your sales interaction, the more tools you have, the more creative you can be, the more successful you're going to be. No doubt about it.
Exactly like you say. You know, I've seen many people trying to sell something, whether it's an idea, a concept, a product, but they've learned a formula or a pattern of behavioral responses. And then one person comes up with a question that they did not prepare for. And because they lacked flexibility, they just shut down. They can't do anything further because they have no way of coping with this situation now.
Exactly. And that's why I always say that the stronger frame always eats up the weaker frame. So the person who runs out of things to say the first is a person that loses a sale conversation. So often if a salesperson goes on a script and they have a script to follow and it goes off script, they go blank because they don't know what to do, and then they lose the game.
And then they lose the game.
Exactly. So, and an example of that would be, I'm sure we all get this, is when we get these, when we get calls on our phone from insurance companies or whatever, and then it'll go like, for me, it goes something like this: "Hi, is that Christopher?" And I go, "Yes." First of all, no one calls me Christopher. Everyone calls me Chris. So and then it goes, "Is that Christopher Adlam?" And then I go, "Yes." And then you can tell two things from the tone that they're using, that they're reading a piece of paper, which eliminates credibility immediately. And also, if you go off script, they lost. So it's a terrible thing that happens, and it gives salespeople a bad name. So, and the sad thing as well is that the way they're taught in a way to follow the script instead of being taught to be creative and to improvise, because they don't understand the system properly. So it's a pity that creativity isn't encouraged more in sales. Because also, in terms of a conversation, what works for Brand might not work for me, or what works for me doesn't work for Brand. So you need to have that flexibility and that creativity in every engagement that you have.
You know, because I've recently realized that the value of sales cannot be overestimated. trying to run multiple workshops, trying to do things in different places, different countries, trying to sell your skill. And without having the knowledge of how to sell is a extreme detrimental problem that I have found to sort of limit my ability to work in different spheres.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, you mentioned having a bad experience. Often because people sell so badly, salespeople have a bad reputation, and then people say, "Well, I don't want to be that guy." So they'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, no, I'm not a salesperson. You know, I'm an artist. Or I'm not a salesperson. I'm whatever." But the most successful artists in the world are the best salespeople. So the most successful artists. I mean, if you look at Pablo Picasso, he was one of the wealthiest artists of all time. Yeah? When he died, he was worth over $100 million. So, and there's an abundance of success stories of great creative people that are successful, and they're successful because they're able to sell their ideas and they're able to sell their products and services. So everybody has great ideas. Everybody has great products. We all have talents. And we all got something to offer the world, but if we can't present it in a way that gets compliance from your buy-in from your audience or the people that you're trying to work with, it's a dead fish. It goes nowhere. And I think, and beyond that, also I think if people learn to sell, I think that it would help the unemployment problems, because if you can sell, you pretty much guaranteed a job, aren't you? Who doesn't want to sell their job? Who doesn't want to sell their product? Who doesn't want to sell their idea? If you can be that guy who can do that, you pretty much guaranteed a job. So one way of I think it's selling and sales and persuasion is a massive skill that's been underutilized and could really be leveraged more in job creation and entrepreneurship and getting economies going. Because everyone has great ideas, but not everyone can sell.
Right. What made me think of asking you for this Imagineering thing, this week of creativity and innovation, I recently reread Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And he was talking to a woman that was a teacher or a writer or journalist or something. I can't remember quite exactly. But she said, she's got all these degrees and all kinds of things, but she's struggling to find better employment. She's trying to move up. And he says to her, you need to be able to sell. And she threw a fit and says, but I'm an artist, I'm this, And he said to her, look at the book that's on the coffee table. What does it say? As he said, it says #1 best-selling author. He says, exactly. I got to share my ideas to all these people, not because I'm an artist, but because I could sell, because I could do what you couldn't do. And just imagine if I could do what I could do and do what you do, what magnificent thing could come out of that.
Absolutely. And that's a tragedy as well, is that people, you got this kind of snobbery, I'm not a salesperson, but the reality is that everybody's selling something every day.
Right. And my entire idea is to move up in the world, not just move on with it. So you want to reach for greater heights. You want more responsibility, more flexibility. You want to be able to do what you want. And these things come when you get other people to help you along the way. And that takes sales. It's not just a product, it's an idea or a way or a path.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that if you want to build a business, if you want to be a leader in your field, you need to be able to lead people. You need to be able to sell your ideas and motivate and inspire people. And that's part of selling. So if you can't sell your ideas and inspire people to work with you, you're not going to be able to lead any organization. So it's not just selling product, It's telling the idea and motivating people to take action. That in itself, it doesn't matter if you're selling a product or selling an idea or trying to get to take action. The techniques are more or less the same. It doesn't change much. So your ability to inspire people is your ability to sell.
What led you to this perspective shift of going from the routine formula that everybody else is doing to try and create a company designed to easily not push, but lead people to understand how important sales is?
I think a while ago I was for it myself. I think I was looking for a information or a formula or something that I could utilize to be more effective in my life, and I couldn't really find it, to be honest. There was a lot of academic nonsense and stuff that didn't really work in the real world. So over the years, I studied different formulas and figured out what worked and what didn't. I studied NLP. I'm an NLP master practitioner. So I trained a lot of people to utilize NLP in sales as well. So I just took a journey of my own journey and trying to figure out how to do this and learning and taking from different people and then coming up with a formula that worked. And I was also quite fortunate that I was able to take some of my ideas and test them. So it's not like an academic idea that I'm putting out there. Everything that I'm doing with Persuasion Dynamics, I've gone out there and tested it. So for the last year, I've been training people in the call industry, in the call agency industry, in the call centers, particularly at Virgin Active, and they kind of gave me carte blanche. I could kind of do what I wanted to do because I believed in what I was doing so much. They just let me do, and also I was getting phenomenal results. So when you get phenomenal results, then people let you do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So I was able to test things out and change things along the way. Even at times, being creative, I would change my mind. So I would train people, and then I'd go back the next day and say, you know what, forget about what I said yesterday. Let's change it because I think I've got a better idea when I was driving home from the office yesterday. Let's try this. I think this is going to work better. And so they gave me the space to do that. So everything that I'm doing within Persuasion Dynamics in the real world. So why does it work and how does it work? That's how it's been a long journey and a creative process.
That's wonderful to know that, because my point of this entire series of talks is to prove that creativity is important in every field, the same way sales is important in every field. You know, everybody needs to be more creative to be able to understand that if you just do the same thing as everybody else, you end up the same as everybody else, which is also nowhere. And I love how you just took something that everybody else was looking at it one way and said, how can we make this easier?
True. And you know what's also interesting is that I also believe that nobody really knows what they're doing. And I think all of us are testing things and trying things out and trying to figure things out along the way. So I don't think the dynamic changes, the circumstances change, or the context changes. So it's never the same. So but it doesn't matter what business you're in, or even if you're selling, you need to be creative in how you sell and how you're going to go about it. I mean, even yesterday, I had a meeting with somebody who's using bots to engage with in conversation. And we were discussing how we could create a dialogue so that the person to sell, use your bot to sell the product, by controlling the conversation, for example. So that's quite an interesting approach to sales, and it's a creative process. We don't really know how to do it. But you try things out, you test it out, see does this work, doesn't this work, and so in a year's time or in 5 years' time, we'll have another interesting platform because things will change. There'll be a new technology, a new something. So creativity never dies.
Creativity never dies. I like that. So just fantastic talking to you. Thanks for sharing your game of frames, and it's just been phenomenal to speak to you again. Chris, thank you so much for doing this, and hope you have a wonderful day. And thank you again. This has been Imagineering, taking you up and not just on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.